The truly unique thing I think about our task force arrangement has been that at other universities, there have been anti-Semitism task forces, but not task forces looking at Islamophobia or anti-Arab bias. Or there have been both task forces and they don't talk to each other. And probably the most important thing about our structure is that although we don't agree on everything and we won't agree on everything, we do agree on a certain common problem. I think a certain common problem about how Harvard students and the community writ large is dealing with difficult subjects, especially Israel-Palestine. And we understand that there are commonalities between the experiences of different kinds of students here.
I think those conversations between us, to me, were really valuable and really honestly became an integral part of the whole exercise. And I would suggest that as others try and do similar things, I think this construct where you're regularly having the co-chairs meet each other creates a sense of trust. I mean, I agree with Derek, look, we're not going to agree on stuff, but it does create a sense of trust with each other, at least about the process and what we're doing.
I think there's a common obstacle that everybody who came to us was feeling. The common issue is they feel that they aren't included in the university in some way. They feel that the university isn't giving them the same rights that it gives to others to get an education, to participate in life. And there were people, and this was a surprise to me that I never would have understood had we not talked to each other. There were students and staff and faculty who would come to both of our listening sessions, and they would share different concerns, or they would share the same concerns, and they think that it was relevant for everybody. So I just think that working together on this allowed us to see more of the field than we would have otherwise, and that was valuable for understanding like what actually is going on in our community.
Yeah, I would agree. There are lots of parallels between the two communities. Many of our students, faculty and staff are also affected by events outside the university. But what's really important to recognize is there are human beings who are affected, and trying to highlight that to ourselves and to learn about the other through the experience of how they are coming to the issues is important. The best approach really is to learn how to deal with complexity and come together across our different perspectives and learn from one another and hopefully move forward.
We have so many students at Harvard who are in pain, who are suffering. And when you see that in different ways, Muslim and Arab students and Jewish and Israeli students are all suffering. And it might be very difficult for each constituency to understand just how much the other group is suffering. I don't think I could have possibly understood that going into this process. It makes the solutions even harder to implement, but at least we now know, I think we have a much better understanding of the problem than we would have if we had just focused on one group or the other.
I think there's a commonality in the emotional experience we all felt, because look, all of us are members of these communities as well. And I think navigating that kind of that tension when I'm not the other, right? I'm part of this community, but I'm listening. And often students were so upset, staff, faculty members, there was so much grief. And I think just being able to process that grief was non-trivial. One of the biggest things the quantitative survey reveals, by far, even more than physical or mental safety, is our students on either side of the aisle don't feel comfortable expressing their opinions. And in many ways, when I entered the academic setting, I thought that's pretty much all we do, right? This is the safest place in the world to speak what's on our mind. I think if there is a legacy I hope that these kind of efforts will produce, it's to bring back the ability for us to have those conversations, which are going to be really painful. These won't be conversations where after having it, you'll go back and, have dinner together or something. You'll probably be sore for a while. And the question is, how do we both accept that soreness, but then create the space for us to still be wanting to come back?
Once people get here, I think they need to be told from the get-go that they need to be curious. Curiosity means more than just wanting to learn stuff. It means being willing to challenge whatever views you were raised with, whatever you got in your home, your faith community, your previous education, your peers. Now, you may cherish those values and you may keep them for the rest of your life, but they need to be challenged in a constructive way. And so we need curiosity, and we also need trust. It's okay to disagree with each other as long as we trust each other and respect each other. And I'd like to see those values really be much more central to Harvard's educational mission going forward.
we have to do a better job of educating in a way that causes our students to try to hear all sides, to not want to invalidate the perspective of the other for whatever reason. How do we try to preserve that space for people to hold a range of views, to change their mind, to be challenged? I think that's a challenge.
There is a concern in the community, among faculty, among students, sort of almost self-censorship, really, sort of difficulty of sharing or speaking out for fear of repercussions. Enabling us to speak up and share our perspective and listen is sort of two sides of that curiosity coin that we should cultivate.
I would say that it's been deeply moving to get the chance to connect with a generation of students in the way that we have. One of the things that we've learned during the course of our investigation is that October 7th and all of the challenges on campus brought to the surface things that had really been brewing beneath the surface for quite a while.
When you actually meet with, not just the students in the classroom setting, but in a listening session or in your office, and you see the pain they're going through and the way that many of our Jewish students have been intimidated, harassed, and shunned, socially shunned. It's really been quite horrible. It makes me want to fix it, right? I care about the students very much, and I want them to be in a better place, and I want Harvard to be in a better place. But I realize that I can't just snap my fingers and make the problems go away. But I'm hoping that what we do together will in fact be one of the more significant things that we will have done in our careers, precisely because this is so personal.
It resonated with me as an Arab, as a Christian who grew up in the region, and have seen firsthand the devastating impact of conflicts that are rooted in religion, in ethnic conflicts, in racial tensions, and how that has led to devastating impacts on lives and livelihoods of nations in the region. And one of the reasons why it's also personal for me is I've been at Harvard for many years, more than 30 years, and I feel it's really a privilege to try to bring our own perspective and our own lessons that we learn from one another and from our communities to the collective and help advance the mission of the university.
We say at Harvard, on the first one, we say, look, we're producing leaders in the world. I think our students genuinely believe that their actions will be instrumental. And it's made me think a lot about, is that naive or am I too jaded? And in one of these listening sessions, one of these students who was giving me a particularly hard time afterwards came up to me and smiled and said, I gave you a really hard time today. This person had lost family, and so there's no way to compare what I was going through and what she must have been going through. And she said, I did that because where were you when we were suffering, basically? You're a senior member of our community. You weren't there. And that really struck home to me in a way that, it made me question. We've all said this, look, we think of ourselves as faculty, we do research, we teach. Unless we advise student clubs, we don't go to dining halls, we are in different schools necessarily. And so this idea that in some sense the students were looking for us not just for intellectual or academic guidance, but also for life lessons.
What gives me hope really is, as a university, is that when we focus on what we are best at, we make progress. And by that I mean focusing on our academic mission, on research, and on education. And bringing to bear our expertise as faculty, as students, as staff, as a community, to shed light on the problems, to study it, to describe it. So I'm hopeful that things will get better, but it does require the input of everybody around the community.
So one of the things that I take from this experience is sort of the indispensability of places like Harvard. That is one of the few times in the lives of our students that they're surrounded by the range of people they will be. And my hope is that we can improve the way that this place works, so we are turning out a leadership class that is ready to engage with one another. And so to the extent that we embrace the mission that we have of helping students understand all of the ways the world they're going to inherit is going to be frustrating and maddening, but also complex and full of opportunities, I think we will have succeeded.
I'm most optimistic about our students because I think they're telling us something. They're telling us, you guys gave us all these skills, and when we try deploying them, you hold us back. And I get why we do it, because sometimes that act of deploying the skill is done with such passion and rigor and energy that sometimes it doesn't quite consider what the consequences of that may be on the other, who might be your next door neighbor, your friend. And so clearly empathy and curiosity are needed. But I feel like rather than us suppressing this energy that they're demonstrating, we need to figure out how to have them be able to channel it. I mean, I think we're here to make a difference in the world.